I think the saddest part about life under Mad King Trump is that it's not like we weren't warned. When the whole ICE situation blew up and we were watching these horrific scenes unfold every day, I thought, this is what the black community was trying to warn us about during the George Floyd protests. They had already seen firsthand the brutality, the excessive use of force, and the complete erosion of the Fourth Amendment, which paved the way for the blatant racial profiling we're seeing now. But we just didn't listen. And now we have militarized ICE agents everywhere, crawling our streets and even our airports. You know, our law enforcement was emboldened in the inner city during the war on drugs, and the black community tried to warn us. Millions of them tried to warn us. But we said, that's their problem. What's that got to do with us? Well, it's got everything to do with us now. Because the black community has always been the canary in the coal mine. The problem is, we just never seem to listen.
I need to know, are there certain black people that just don't like us because we're white?
We live in a country that enslaved black people and never paid for it. And y'all be asking questions like this. Meanwhile, the same government who okayed this shit determine the curriculum in school, and they decide they gonna show slave movies to black people while they sit next to people who look just like you. Like Muhammad Ali said though, every lion ain't gonna try to attack you, but who gonna be dumb enough to wait for the one that's not? You got Karens on every corner, you got the cops trying to shoot kids any chance they get. You got the KKK that the government does nothing about. You have the government who not putting in no bills to protect black people from all this racist bullshit. So when you ask this question, it's just laughable. I believe most of the country is not racist, but I know for a fact that most of the country don't mind accepting the benefits of racism, so it don't really matter to people like us. This country is so money hungry, it enslaved black people for over 400 years and never paid for it. And every time they talk about reparations, they so greedy, they think we more concerned about getting money. But in reality, when you admit that you wrong, that is how you correct your behavior. But because they don't want to admit they wrong, they let us know they want to keep their racism going. This is what the country is built off of. When you hear people say, make America great again, and white people have always been in control of it, what they mean is get their slaves back. That was the only time they can say whatever they want and do whatever they wanted to us, and nobody would dare question it. But now all these woke people are starting to get on their nerves. To say make America great again is delusional anyways. In a country that was built with no integrity, off of the backs of slaves, all of the evil that was done, and they documented it, so it's not just me saying this. We had to go to school to study, so I know what I'm talking about. The same country that has not taken a break from their evil to the life that was created by God will lie to themselves and say, God bless America. The fucking bullshit we gotta deal with. Subscribe to my YouTube, Planet Reality.
After World War I, American soldiers came home really proud of the work they had done to combat fascism in Europe and, save the world for democracy. And black Americans came home the same way. They were proud of their uniforms, and they had earned honor through their sacrifice and their courage. They came home to a wave of racial terror. The year 1919 was named the Red Summer. White mobs attacked black people in cities across the United States. You won't be surprised to learn that it was started because a white woman accused a black man of assaulting her. But that was just a spark in the kindling of what was already going on in the nation. In Chicago, there was a 13-day riot that left 38 people dead, men, women, children, and over 500 injured. In Washington, D.C., there were these white mobs that included off-duty soldiers and police attacking black residents for several days. And in Elaine, Arkansas, somewhere between 100 and 200 black sharecroppers and their families were slaughtered after organizing for fair wages. In fact, in Chicago, they ground a black teenager named Eugene Williams for drifting over into a whites-only swimming area. When black residents defended themselves from these attacks, which was unusual because they had been so threatened before that they didn't often fight back in the days before the First World War. When they defended themselves, the police arrested them instead of the attackers. The killers were not punished. The court sentenced 12 black men to death instead. During the 20s and 30s, black farmers were pushed off their land. Sometimes they were forced to sign over the deeds to their property, and like a white mob would show up at their property and say, get out of town by sundown, and if you're not out of town, we'll kill you, we'll burn your property. Banks refused to give loans to the black community because all black people were too risky. Entire black communities lost land that their family had worked for since they were freed from chattel slavery, had no protection. The laws were not there to protect them. Then the Great Depression hit. My family was made up of poor white people in Kansas and Oklahoma. They suffered, but they got the New Deal. They got Social Security. They got things that black families were locked out of. Social Security was not available to agricultural and domestic workers. Now, who do you think the majority of agricultural and domestic workers were? They were black people. The Federal Housing Administration wouldn't back mortgages for black families in black neighborhoods. This created the redlining maps that still shape our cities today. In the book 1984, George Orwell said, "Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past." White people, I'm asking you to do one thing. Share the information that I'm posting with one other white person so that the truth can regain control of the narrative. Next time I'll be talking about World War II and the Great Generation. Get curious.
Hello guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel once again. Thank you so much for the for coming back and tuning in. So guys, into today's video is about the white people. They are really realize that this system is turning against them because they really built this system in 1919, whereby the destruction of the black community, but now the system, it has turned against them. Now they are really regretting and coming out and talk about how black are very silent. So I want you guys to continue watch this compilation of videos until the end, then I will come with more comments. If you have not subscribed, remember to subscribe, like, and also comment. Let's watch these videos together.
Let's talk about the anti-blackness that exists within the Latin American community. When I went to go talk to them, they said that we don't like African Americans because they feel that we owe them something.
Well, contrary to their belief, we love y'all, and black people don't feel like you owe us anything, except common decency and the same respect we give to the Hispanic and Asian community. We know how you talk about us. Why you with that black guy? Your kids are gonna be dark. Don't let that man in my house. We see the hate, but we don't share that same hate for you. Hell, we don't even hate white people. We just don't fuck with racists. If you ask most black people what they want, they'll just say equality and to be left alone. But even when we're minding our own business, we start our own banks, we get our own neighborhoods, we build our own cities, the good old boys come and burn it down. This was Tulsa, this was Rosewood, this was Wilmington. They did it in Chicago. We had to make special books just to drive through our own country. So where can we go for peace? Go on over to Africa. They came to Africa, scooped us up, and brought us here. The large influx of Asians arrived here in the 1800s, Hispanics early 1900s, Polish 1870, Irish 1845, German 1820s, the rest of the world 1800s. Black people been here centuries before any of these groups. And we've been on the front lines of every single war, fighting for a country where every other group hates us. Many Asians and Hispanics move through this country unbothered because they think, because their skin is closer to white, that they have the same privilege and can treat black people the same way white people do. And this is why 40% of the Asian vote and half of the Hispanic vote went to the orange man. But the Hispanic community, you're learning very quickly, and they'll invade Chinatown and Koreatown and Little Japan next. And then you'll see why you perpetuate your anti-blackness, that they hate you just as much as us. As an enabled body adult, it is your choice to have a lack of education to keep you in this ignorance of this all blacks are bad mindset. If you're taught that Malcolm X was just a writer and MLK was just a pastor and slavery wasn't that bad, how could you truly understand the black experience? And now they're banning black education from our schools. Does this not scream 1933? When Black Lives Matter happened back in 2020, there were thousands of people jumping on social media talking about, oh my God, how come no one ever told me about Emmett Till? How come no one ever told me about the Tuskegee Airmen or Henrietta Lacks? That's just American history to us. Once you take the time to learn about the impact that black people had on this country and the world as a whole, your viewpoint on black people will be totally different. If the media constantly told the world that the entire Hispanic experience was this photo, or the entire white experience was school shooters and serial killers, that would be fucked up, right? Well, that's how they've been doing black people for decades. That's not our history. But we're forced to learn about white history, which is mostly wars and seasoned land and racism. Shit, we're about to go to war right now. You can't even become a citizen without learning their history, which is why everybody knows about the Boston Tea Party, the Battle on Bunker Hill, and can sing the Star-Spangled Banner, which ironically is also about war. The rockets' red glare and the bombs are bursting in the air. And can't forget racism. No refuge can save the harrowing and slave from the terror of flight and gloom of the grave. Like, damn! They even killed us in the anthem and then gaslight us and call us unpatriotic if we don't want to sing it. So yes, we would love the respect of white folks who've been treating us like shit for over 400 years. We would love respect from all other people of color who wasn't dragged here but came here as immigrants at their own free will. Because when you, my fellow Asians, Hispanics, Middle Easterns, Africans, Pacific Islanders, Caribbeans, when you arrived to this cookout, your plate was already made. Black people already fought for your civil rights. We already fought for fair housing. We already fought for freedom. We fought through Jim Crow and being able to sit at the same damn restaurant as white people. We endured the acid being poured in public pools, the lynchings, the burnings, the drownings. The reason you could get a job or health care or an education. Black people fought for it. We didn't start HBCUs because we wanted black universities. They were started because we couldn't get into white universities. And we don't complain when many of your people sit on the sidelines comfortable and quiet. But it is fucked up when you say, why they always protesting and boycotting? All the while, these boycotts are benefiting you too. And now you're realizing that when we sit down and shut the fuck up. It ain't easy when you have to go boots to the ground, is it? Facing a sea of racist cops and ICE officials with shields and guns just itching to use them. Being thrown to the ground and watching your loved ones get round up like animals. It ain't easy seeing your people unjustly thrown in detention centers and your family torn apart. Snatching up babysitters and farmers with no due process. And you're lucky it ain't the 60s because they had dogs, ropes, and fire hydrants for us. It ain't easy feeling helpless because the country you love, the country that your people helped build and bled for, hates you. Coming home as a decorated veteran and you have to eat outside or they spit in your food. It ain't easy knowing that you're excluded from the all. When America screams with liberty and justice for all. Well, this has always been the black experience. Always. And that's why when black people see Asians or Hispanics or white people speaking up against the inequalities in America, we always support your views. It's got to be very difficult to step away from a long lineage of hate, knowing that your people, your family, your friends will call you a traitor simply because you fuck with black people. Well, you tell your hating ass family that this country was built on immigrants. So why the fuck?
So I got to watch Amanda Seales on the Jubilee podcast take on 20 black conservatives, if that's how they want to describe themselves, talking about why the cry by black Americans for reparation and some of the other claims that they've made about living in America as a black person is all but a noise. I think for the first time, talking on the black experience here in America by those whose ancestors were brought here, hearing her talk about that experience and the consequences of the experience and the effect of that experience on this generation of black Americans, hearing her talk about it made me have a new perspective on life for an a Black American here in America. I am also one of those who have for a long time believed that by now they should have gotten over it. And I am here to say I'm so sorry that I thought that way. I haven't read books about the slavery experience for Black people. The fact that even with the freedom that the civil rights fighters did try to get Black people to be seen as equals in this country, systemic racism still exists. And I watched on that podcast some of the Africans from the diaspora, some of the Africans in the diaspora playing out their clueless minds, like so many of us display sometimes, about not understanding the struggles the African Americans, the Black Americans whose ancestors contributed to the growth of this country, the struggles that they've had to endure to make it easy for Africans who have migrated here, found a place to exist here, made money here, live a life that is at least better than where they're coming from, who've paved that way to make it happen. Because the truth, if they never did that work, if they didn't have to pay with their lives, if they didn't have to fight that struggle for Black Americans to find their voice, to express their voice, and to fight to be able to have a place on the table besides the whites who, for reasons best known to them, feel that they are the only ones who have a right to exist and to exist freely. If they didn't pay that price, no African in the diaspora would be able to stay here. That, I've come to realize, is the fact. And I think Amanda Seal kind of like made that sink in when he took on the guy from Angola, and then there was another guy who were talking like they don't even understand that the struggle that the Africans who are, I mean, we refer to them as African Americans, but they're Black Americans. And I think that they deserve to own that, describing themselves as Black Americans. I think the fact that they still want to attach the African heritage to being so described is their desire to have an identity with the motherland. And I do appreciate that fact. But I think I'm just one repentant African right now who's had to be schooled to understand that the struggle of the Black American living in America is way, way different from the reality of the African who came here for a better life, for greener pastures, and so do not understand that the price was paid to make it easy for any of them to be able to live here and not experience the level of racism that the African Americans have had to endure. Of course, we can't forget the Jim Crow era and the implication of that on their lives, their families, and everything that should make life easy for them. All of that should be taken into consideration when we talk to our African American brothers. I get it now. I totally understand when they are angry with Africans when they come up with an attitude that seems to categorize them as lazy. That ain't lazy. When you fight for others to be able to find their way into a place that they can have a life, whoever is coming into that space should respect it. And I think it's about time the Africans who come to America learn to respect the struggle, the fight that African Americans, their ancestors, have fought to allow Africans to be able to exist in this country. I apologize one more time. I seriously do apologize for having spoken out of context and sometimes it's because of the response you get from your African American brothers and sisters. Comes across as if we're in a battle for existence, and so it draws a negativity that shouldn't be allowed to even find root. That's why we have all the division of Africans who are doing this, the African Americans who are doing that, whilst we should be speaking in one voice. Thank you, Amanda Seals. To watch all those 20 black people not understanding who they are and how they got to be where they are today, and coming across as being entitled and seeing themselves as what the whites don't see them as. They don't see them as equals. No matter the opportunities you think are available to you, they will never give you that recognition of being someone with a right to be you as an American in America. And so I get what Amanda Seals was saying on that platform, on that podcast. And it was something I needed to hear to change my point of view about my fellow Black American.
Okay, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Donald Trump, not out of praise, but out of truth. Because while you rip through every part of this government, tearing down justice, equality, and fairness under the fake excuse of fighting DEI fraud, what you're really doing is confirming what black folks have been saying for generations. America was built on racism, fueled by fear and sustained by white supremacy. You've exposed it all. The masks are off. The polite racism, the fake allyship, the colorblind lies, it's all gone. Now we see it raw and unfiltered. You're not just targeting policy, you're targeting people. Black people, brown people, marginalized communities. And the wild part, we make up the smallest portion of this country, yet somehow we are the biggest threat to the lie that white supremacy built. That should tell you everything. You're afraid not of violence, not of replacement, but of the power we hold even when we have nothing. You see the way our culture, our brilliance, our resilience, our excellence continues to shape this country, even when it tries to erase us. Donald Trump is just the loudest version of a system that's always been in place. He is the living, breathing proof that this country was never designed with us in mind. And yet, we continue to define it. So thank you, Donald, for exposing what so many tried to deny, for showing the world that the fear of black greatness is real, for proving that racism isn't in our imagination, it's in the fabric of this nation. And to my people, we don't have to fight to prove our worth. He's doing that for us. All we have to do is stand firm, stay awake, and know that the truth is finally louder than the lie. We are not broken. We are not the problem. We are the evidence of the power that this country can contain. Let that truth ring louder than its hate.
America could have had nice things. Universal health care, possible. Affordable college, absolutely. A strong middle class, should have been a given. But instead, this country chose racism over progress. And now everyone's paying for it. Because every time America had a chance to build something that benefited everybody, the thought of black people having access to it was apparently too much to handle. Instead of progress, we got a country that actively made life harder for itself, just to keep black people down. Universal health care. Not if black people get it too. Back in the 1940s, America had a chance to create a universal healthcare system. Other countries did it, but the US? Nah. Now, you may be asking yourself, why? Because universal healthcare meant that black people could go to the same hospitals as white people and potentially get treated like an actual human being. And they just couldn't have that. Southern politicians outright said that they wouldn't support it if it meant desegregation. Instead of universal healthcare, we got employer-based insurance. And that left millions of people uninsured, and we all know a hospital bill can bankrupt you. And now, even white people in states that fought so hard against universal healthcare, they're struggling just to afford insulin. Rural hospitals are shutting down because states are refusing federal funding. Medical debt is the #1 cause of bankruptcy. But hey, at least they didn't have to share a waiting room, right? Affordable college, though. Let's talk about that. Once upon a time, public colleges were affordable. California's public universities, they were basically free. Tuition in other states? So cheap, you could pay for it with a summer job. Can you imagine? And then the civil rights movement happened. More black students gained access to higher education. And instead of just letting people go to school, states started slashing education budgets. Public universities raised tuition. Federal aid shifted from grants to loans. And suddenly higher education became a debt trap. And now, Americans are over 1.7 trillion in student debt. An entire generation is financially crippled for simply getting an education. And even jobs that require degrees don't pay enough to cover the costs. America was so determined to keep black students out, they ended up locking everyone into lifelong debt instead. Now, homeownership. You know what builds generational wealth? Owning a home. After World War II, the government gave white families access to cheap home loans, setting them up for success. Black families locked out of those programs, thanks to redlining and racist lending processes. And when black people did buy homes, white flight drained resources from those neighborhoods. So if we fast forward to today, the housing market is a literal nightmare. Wages haven't kept up with home prices. Millennials and Gen Z can barely afford rent, let alone buy a property. America's fear of black home ownership helped create a market where now nobody can afford a house. Now let's talk about strong unions. Back in the day, unions were powerful. They fought for better wages, job security, and benefits. And black workers, they were leading some of the biggest labor movements. What did corporations and politicians do? They went to war with the unions. Reagan set the tone by firing striking air traffic controllers in 1981. Companies spent decades breaking unions, outsourcing jobs, and replacing full-time work with gig jobs. Right-to-work laws made organizing harder. And now most workers were left with stagnant wages and no protection. America didn't want to give black workers bargaining power, so they weakened unions across the board and made everyone suffer. This country could have had universal health care. It could have had free college. It could have had a strong working class and affordable housing. But every time America had the choice between progress and keeping black people out, it picked the latter. And now, instead of just screwing over black people, the entire system is broken. They deny black people health care. Now the whole country's drowning in medical debt. They locked black students out of college. Now everyone is shackled with student loans. They stopped black home ownership. Now the housing market is a disaster. They fought black-led unions. Now wages are stagnant for everyone. America wanted to keep black people down so badly, it dragged itself down with us. And the wildest part is that people are still out here pretending to be surprised.
You know, if you're black and live in America, you will always have a story about an experience that you had with blatant racism. So for those of you who don't know, I served in the United States Air Force. So the year is 1984, and I had been accepted to start boot camp for the Air Force, but I needed to wait for another 6 weeks. So during the time that I'm waiting to start Air Force, I take this temporary job through a temp agency. And the temp agency calls me and they say, we have an assignment for you at a law firm. So I prepare myself, and I'm always very professional, and I put on my professional attire. and I show up to the assignment. So when I get to the assignment, it's a very small husband and wife law firm. And so I arrive early and I walk into the law firm and I am met with the wife. And I say to her, I'm here from blah, blah temp agency. And she had an expression on her face that I had never seen before. But this feeling came through my body. So she was a middle-aged white woman, and her husband had not gotten to the office yet. So she tells me to have a seat. Now, this assignment was for me to sit in their front office as a receptionist. The receptionist who worked there on a permanent basis went out on maternity leave, so they went to a temp agency, okay? So she goes in an office that's adjacent to the receptionist area, and I could hear her. She didn't know I could hear her, but I could hear her on the phone, and she had called her husband, and she's trying to figure out how they're going to deal with this person in their front office. Shortly after, her husband arrives to the office and he greets me, and then he goes in the office with his wife, and they try and gently let me know that my assignment has been terminated and that they have reached out to the temp agency. And I think I was there for no more than 30 minutes to an hour. Not one customer had arrived or anything of the sort. And I remember going home to my mom, and I was just like really confused. And you got to understand, I was 19 years old at the time, 18, 19. And I had never been so blatantly, treated in such a way. And so I told her what happened, and she gave me a really good talk about, being black in America, and that this is the first of many situations that I'm going to have to unfortunately deal with. And in today's climate, it's much different than it was back when I was 19. We don't tolerate those types of behaviors. We speak out more. There's a lot more laws in place, and a lot of things that I don't know. I can't really say that it has diminished racism, but there's a lot more protections in place. Let me just say it that way. The reason I'm sharing this story today is that throughout my life, I'm going to be 60 here, and all of the successes that I've had in life, I went on to serve in the Air Force, and I had a very successful career. I worked my way up to a vice president at my organization, all kinds of things. But I never, ever forgot the look on that woman's face. And throughout my life and my career, I have seen that look. I've seen that look in the grocery store. I've seen that look at, just walking down the street. I've seen that look at events. I know the look. We all know the look. Then to share my experience of blatant racism, and that when you see the look or you get that feeling that I got in the law office that day, it's a real thing. It's not your imagination. It's a real thing. Anyway, I love you guys. Have a great day.
Hello guys, welcome back. I hope you have just watched that full message from the reaction from the black Americans, how this system is really turning against the white folks, because these white folks, they really know that they have been surviving in this system for so many years, and this system was just built against the black community. But this system also, it has affected the Americans in large number. This is not all about racism, but it also have affected Americans so much. So during the ready summer in 1919, so we had the destruction of the black community. This is where now this is the system of white folks now came in, and this system really came in. It led to our black people, the black farmers losing their lands, and also redlining, and also being locked out of deals. You will find that our black Americans during 1919, during the building of the system, you find that our black people really lose their farmers, black farmers losing their lands, and also we heard out of deals. Which kind of deals is this? The deals that the deals that maybe now when you came time of promotion, or when it came time of promotion, or when it came time of just appointment in the government, the white people, they were just given the first priority. So this is where now the year that this system was now place came in place. So after that, now they do this system, but they were just killing the generation, because this is the generation damages. Imagine, since 1919 up to now, the system has made a lot of damages, but they were just celebrating that they were oppressing the black community. But it has now reached the time that now they are seeing the consequences of this system. The system has really turned against them because of that racism. I can just say racism and racial discrimination and race. They build a racial discrimination whereby this really affected the black communities. That's why we heard now this the cost of racism that is now hitting the American because of this destruction of black community. We are not the Americans now could have had an universal health coverage, but in America we have no that coverage of universal coverage. You can just see Mexico is offering, but American doesn't have that now. The cost of racism is what is affecting the Americans. So guys, thank you for watching me. I'm your host, Edwin's J-Way Reaction. If you have not subscribed, please remember to subscribe, like, and also comment. Bye for now. See you in the next video.